Okay, good morning everyone. Now we're just waiting to gather the tribunal members here so that we have a quorum. So perhaps if we just get our first speaker up to the microphone, and is Barry here? No. I think Waikato District Council. We might have you standing at the mic, and once we've got our quorum, we'll get going. Okay. So Declan, it's you, Declan. Declan, is it? No, who is it? Peter. Oh, Peter. Right, Peter. Sorry, we're just sorting it out. I've got a yellow screen and boxes all over it, so I'm just checking to see what's going on. Okay, are we ready to start?
Sorry? No.
They are in the building.
Right. We can't start until we have a quorum.
That's right.
And we're just waiting for those councillors to arrive. Okay, councillors, we're ready to go. So the first presenter is a 15-minute presentation from the Waikato District Council, and we've got Peter, who is the treatment plants engineer, and he's come on behalf of the CE today. And that's your cell phone? Lucky, it's not ours. We've got ours off or on vibrate, so yes. You'll have to be sent from the room if your cell phone goes off. All right, off you go. Thank you very much, Peter.
I'm Peter Sayward. I'm the Treatment Plants Engineer at Waikato District Council. I'm here representing the CEO, Gavin Iron, who's in the list. Waikato District Council has a policy that was notified in March 2011 that those schemes that were fluoridated at the time would continue to be fluoridated. The community water fluoridation policy also stated that any remaining supplies should be dosed with fluoride depending on consultation outcomes and availability of finance. This policy is in line with Ministry of Health recommendations that were in place at the time, and these recommendations are still current. There are more than 2,500 properties within Waikato District Council boundaries that are connected to the Hamilton City Council water supply. Discontinuation of fluoridation will affect some 7,000 to 8,000 residents of the Waikato District Council region. On behalf of the Waikato District Council, I respectfully request that Hamilton City Council continue to provide fluoridated water to our residents. That's my submission. Yeah.
Right, and we've got your written submission too, so thank you very much for that.
Yep.
So, questions? I've got Councillor McPherson.
Those 7,000 to 8,000 residents receiving Hamilton water at the moment, have they ever been specifically consulted over your submission today?
No, I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, have the residents in any other part of Waikato District been consulted over the submission today?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thanks.
Right, any other questions, councillors? No. Okay, look, thank you very much for coming along and doing that, and for the written submission, and please pass on our thanks to the Chief Executive as well. Thank you. Right, councillors, the next speaker. Is not here yet. Right, okay, so who's the first Skype call, Jacob, and what is the submission number, please? No, Declan Moore we've had. Have we? No, sorry. Yep. Oh, yep. 282. So this is the first of our Skyped in presenters, and remember, councillors, that questions for the Skyped people need to be relayed through Jacob, and he will then speak the question over the wires to where this person is. Where is this person located? Right, Skyping in from Ireland, about 10:30 at night. The Republic of Ireland? Right, okay. It's submission 282.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. I'm just trying to get the video up there.
Just bear with us a moment. You're speaking with Jacob Quinn from Hamilton City Council. I'll be relaying any questions from our elected members to you after your presentation.
Okay. Jason, I'm going to put on my other laptop because I have a webcam, but I can't see anything from your side. So I'm gonna. Can you ring me back in 30 seconds?
Sure.
Okay, bye.
I think, Jacob, he's coming through very loud and clear, so, I mean, as long as the voice is clear, I think we need to, you know. Yes, I'm not too concerned about the video situation because as long as the oral is clear. So are we going to wait for that one or? Right, okay.
Hi, Jason.
Good evening. We can see you now and we can hear you loud and clear in any case, so the floor is yours.
Very good. First, I'd like to thank Hamilton City Council for giving me the opportunity to make a short presentation to you. I'm an environmental scientist based in Ireland, and my area of expertise is largely due diligence and risk management. I'm also a chartered environmentalist and water manager. And my interest in fluoridation largely came about by accident, I would have to say, in that 2 years ago, an engineer approached me and asked me to investigate it, to look into whether or not there were any concerns regarding the policy in Ireland, because like New Zealand, we have a policy of fluoridation of public water supplies that has been going on since 1967. And my initial understanding of it was there could be no concerns with water fluoridation, but I very quickly realized when I started doing my research that Ireland is the only country in Europe that has a policy of legislative policy mandated by government that all public water supplies must be fluoridated. And when I started reviewing the risk management studies that had been undertaken by other European countries, I became extremely alarmed. One of the first publications that I went to review was this study by the National Academies in the United States. It's a publication that was published in 2006. It's an extremely lengthy document, over 500 pages. And they had some of the most eminent medical and scientific minds in the United States review the whole issue of fluoride for a number of years. It wasn't loaded with dentists. There was one professor of dentistry on it. The rest of them were specialists in cancer, in neurotoxicology, in areas of endocrine science and other areas of medical science that are very relevant to the whole area of water fluoridation. And when I read that report, I was really shocked by what I found in it. And I was astonished, to be honest with you. I couldn't believe what I was reading. They listed in their study over 60 detailed clinical epidemiological studies that they believed were required to show and demonstrate the safety of water fluoridation for all sectors of society. None of these studies have been undertaken. And part of many of the significant recommendations that they included in it were extremely alarming for me as an environmental scientist and as a parent. And I'm just going to read out two of them for you because they're relevant to New Zealand as they are to public health here in Ireland. On page 222 of the document, this is what they say. Fluorides also inhibit the activity of choloesterases, including acetylcholoesterase. Recently, the number of receptors for acetylcholine have been found to be reduced in regions of the brain thought to be most important for mental stability and for adequate retrieval of memory. Fluorides also increase the production of free radicals in the brain through several different biological pathways. These changes have a bearing on the possibility that fluorides act to increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Today, the disruption of anaerobic metabolism in the brain, a reduction of the effectiveness of acetylchlorine as a transmitter, and an increase in free radicals are thought to be causative factors for this disease. And they ended by saying that more research is needed to clarify fluoride's biochemical effects on the brain. They also mentioned that aluminium fluoride compounds, which are created when you fluoridate public water supplies, because aluminium is also used in water treatment, and it's also present in other foodstuffs such as tea, for example, that aluminium fluoride complexes not only produces false messages throughout the nervous system, but at the same time diminishes the energy essential for brain function. Now, just some very quick research that I did today for New Zealand, the statistics are quite similar to Ireland, but we're actually worse. There are 48,000 people in New Zealand suffering from dementia. The financial cost in 2008 was in the region of 718 million for the state. The overall figure is expected to rise in terms of people suffering from dementia to 70,000 people by 2026, and by 2050 to 146,699 people are predicted will suffer from dementia in New Zealand by that date. Alzheimer's disease in New Zealand, it is estimated affects 30,000 New Zealanders in terms of immediate families. Almost 1/4 of New Zealanders have someone with Alzheimer's disease in their family. Now, what was interesting for me is because in my recent study, I've looked at the incidence of early onset dementia in the population in Ireland, and I've compared it to Northern Ireland, which has a population of almost 2 million, we live on the same island and we're genetically more or less the same people. We eat the same food. The only difference largely is the fact that we have fluoridated water in the south and they don't in the north. And the incidence of early onset dementia in Northern Ireland compared to the Republic of Ireland, we're 450% higher, 4.5 times the level of early onset dementia as present in the south of Ireland. Now, when I looked at the incidence of, I repeat, you're not supposed to get early onset dementia in a healthy population under the age of 65. In New Zealand in 2011, there were 2,000 people diagnosed with early onset dementia in your country. You have a population of 4.4 million. Population of Northern Ireland is approximately 2 million, and in the Republic it's 4.5. If you adjust those figures to populations in terms of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and bear in mind that 50% of New Zealanders consume fluoridated water compared to 80% in the Republic of Ireland, we're twice the level of early onset dementia that New Zealand has, and New Zealand is 100% higher than Northern Ireland, 100% higher. Now, another issue that's relevant to New Zealand is this one, because Ireland was the leading country in the world with regard to sudden infant death syndrome. New Zealand has overtaken us. New Zealand has the highest incidence of sudden infant death syndrome in the world at the moment. And the NRC found that fluoride, I'm reading a quote from them, it's likely to cause decreased melatonin production, which is likely to have other effects on normal pineal function, which in turn contribute to a variety of effects in humans. They mentioned that melatonin production is linked to sudden infant death syndrome. And it has also been suggested, they said, that it is linked, that melatonin concentrations and are linked to osteosarcoma, of which in recent studies which I've reviewed on from international cancer journals, New Zealand has one of the highest rates of osteosarcoma for both adolescents and elderly people in the world. So they're just two issues that I'd like to highlight to you with regard to the issue of fluoride. In all of the studies that I've reviewed, I can absolutely with 100% certain to tell you that the issue has not been properly addressed by public health authorities. The World Health Authority have clearly stated in their recommendations that the total dietary fluoride exposure of the population must be determined accurately before any country commences water fluoridation. And recently, in the last 2 days, I've received from the Food Safety Authority in Ireland the fluoride levels that they measured in foodstuffs and beverages in the Republic of Ireland, and I have confirmed to them that their findings are out by an order of magnitude. Their results, which have been tested independently through testing that I've commissioned and compared to EU, UK, and United States data, shows that the total fluoride levels in foodstuffs in Ireland measured by the Food Safety Authority are out by an order of 10 times. So, like, we never did a total dietary fluoride assessment of the public in Ireland before we started commencement of fluoridation. 50 years later, we have a scenario where the population are chronically overexposed to fluoride, and there has been no proper study or assessment of the risks by the public health bodies in this country or in any country that fluoridates public water supplies. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
So, councillors, any questions for Declan? I just have one question, if you could relay. Has he looked at the European cities and why they don't fluoridate water, and does he have a comment on that?
Declan, I've got a question from Her Worship the Mayor. She's asking if you've looked at European cities in particular those that don't fluoridate their water, and why that might be.
Yes, I have. And I mean, the big difference between Ireland and Europe is this. The NRC talked about the issue of cancer, okay? The incidence of cancer in the Republic of Ireland is 85% above the European region. 85%. There's only one country in the whole of Europe that has a cancer incidence rate higher than Ireland, and that's Hungary. And I found out 2 weeks ago that the reason that Hungary has such a high incidence of cancer is because they have chronic arsenic levels in their drinking water. Now, when you come to Germany, the oldest technical union in the world that deals with issues of water advised the Minister for Health and the German government that water fluoridation was an unnecessary risk, that it was also illegal in regards to German law, in regards to bodily integrity and the rights of individuals to protect their own safety. The German government accepted that right. In the same context, in Sweden, the Swedish government approached the Nobel Institute, and the Nobel Institute informed the Swedish Parliament that that water fluoridation was unsafe and that they should end the policy, and that is what they did. In the Netherlands, Dr. Mullenberg set up a clinical team of 12 doctors who reviewed the incidence of disease in the area around Amsterdam after they commenced water fluoridation, and found a very significant increase in a wide range of medical conditions in the population, and came to the conclusion that water fluoridation was a low-level poisoning of the population.
Okay,
And
thank
that
you,
is
Declan. I'm going to have to end it there. Thank you very much for your submission. You've been our first submission via Skype on this process, so, and it's worked
Thank you
reasonably
very
well,
much.
I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
Okay, good. Okay, that worked really well. Thank you very much. So our next speaker is Stephen Pawley. So good morning, Stephen. So you've got 10 minutes, including question time.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to make the submission. My name's Stephen Pawley. I've been a dentist in Hamilton for over 25 years. In addition to my 2 dental qualifications, I also have a science degree in biochemistry and human physiology from the University of Otago. I'm making this submission as an individual, but I'm also representing the clients of my practice, and I feel I also need to make a stand for the general population of Hamilton. Before I get into discuss the benefits of water fluoridation on oral health, I need to address some of the concerns that I've read over the past months, and so including the debate when Paul Connett was here last time. I went away and read several of the references Paul Connett commented on and found them to be misrepresented, misquoted, and I was very disappointed in the way they were presented, as it wasn't actually fact, although he was a great presenter. Firstly, the source of the fluoride. We all know that we use HFA or hydrofluorosilicic acid in Hamilton water supply. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where the source of the fluoride come from. It behaves in exactly the same manner as fluoride from the highest grade pharmaceutical quality sodium fluoride. Once it's dissolved in water, fluoride is fluoride is fluoride, so the sources are relevant. Secondly, a lot of the argument opposing fluoridation is not based on a reticulated water supply of a level of 0.7 to 1 parts per million, which is what Hamilton has, and most of the world recommends that as a recommended dose. With toxicology, when you're studying things like this, you can't increase the level of fluoride to reduce the time frame of your studies, because toxicology doesn't work like that. If you want to see the effect of a 50-year exposure to fluoride, you can't multiply the fluoride by 10 to divide your time frame by 5. It just doesn't work. So a lot of the references and articles that you will hear from will come from studies that involve high levels of fluoride over a short time. They are also irrelevant in this debate. Thirdly, you'll hear a lot about the dose, that you can't control how much people drink. I was down at Ironman in March, a very hot day, spoke to a lot of athletes I know. 10 to 12 litres these people consumed over a period of 10 to 14 hours of competing. That is less than 0.5% of a toxic dose. So the amount of volume of water that people drink is really not important either. The maximum volume someone can drink in one day has been estimated to be 40 litres. So, and the body excretes 50% of it within 5 hours of having consumed it. You'll hear a lot about European countries taking their fluoride out of the water. That's true. but they're replacing it with other fluoride methods such as in salt, and a lot of the areas that have removed water fluoridation naturally have high levels, so they don't need to be as vigilant. Australia is increasing the coverage they have at the moment. They have 80% of their population receiving water fluoridation, and they're actively increasing that, and over 200 million, or 75% of Americans, still drink fluoridated water. I'll get on to the significance dentally. We were all taught that plaque was bad and we all need to remove it, and I presume most people here are still of that opinion. That is not in fact the case. Plaque is actually very good, which is a new concept. As soon as you brush your teeth, the plaque starts to form on your teeth. It's called biofilm. This biofilm is a very organised setup of bacteria on your teeth, and it's a safety net. What the biofilm does is it catches minerals from your teeth as they are breaking down, because they are repeatedly under acid attack, and holds that mineral against the tooth. If you didn't have biofilm, your teeth would erode away. They wouldn't decay, they would just erode, because the mineral would be lost and it would just disappear basically down your throat and you'd excrete it. As far as fluoride goes, when someone consumes fluoridated water, the fluoride levels in their saliva go up significantly, and therefore they bathe this biofilm in fluoride. The fluoride is absorbed by the biofilm and holds it against the tooth as well. This spike will last for 2 hours following consuming fluoridated water. So if you have a drink every 2 hours, your fluoride levels in your saliva will be up, your biofilm will be absorbing that fluoride to a therapeutic level, that when your tooth starts to break down, the fluoride is absorbed more readily than the calcium, and your tooth remains intact. The higher the fluoride levels in the biofilm, the stronger your tooth and the less resistant to decay it becomes. We're probably all, when we brush our teeth, we use a very high dose of fluoride in that, and once we're finished, we spit the froth out and we rinse with water. We shouldn't be rinsing with water, because what you're doing is you're washing all the good stuff from your toothpaste down the sink. We've all thought that the benefit of fluoride comes during the formation of the tooth. Well, the current science says that it doesn't. The fluoride shows benefit throughout your life. As I've just indicated, it's because of the fluoride content in the saliva. Many elderly patients I see now are in their late 70s, 80s and 90s, still have a large number of their own teeth. These people, I feel, are going to be at a detriment if we remove the fluoride from the water. What happens is, as you get older, the ability to remove the plaque decreases, so your oral hygiene's not so good. The plaque sits around a little bit longer, and after about 3 days, this plaque gets invaded by bacteria which produce acid. In the elderly, root caries is a real problem. I don't know if you've heard about it. What happens is the roots of the teeth get attacked by the acid and they start to decay away. It's like a rotten apple. It spreads from tooth to tooth to tooth. It's very difficult to treat and very difficult to maintain. Most of my elderly patients I see in Hamilton have this under control, whereas my elderly patients from Te Awamutu, Morrinsville and Cambridge are not so lucky. There's nothing worse than having to pull the teeth out on an 80-year-old and giving them a set of dentures for the first time. Most of them do not cope. The most common question I get asked by my elderly patients, will my teeth see me out? Most of the times I can say yes, but I think if we remove the fluoride, I will have to say we'll have to see. Old people don't cope with changes, and giving them dentures is just probably the last straw for a lot of them, and they don't eat properly, and basically they throw the towel in. I have given you a handout if you do want to read it. Several years ago I did a project with WINS called 100 Healthy Smiles. What happened was we did some work on a bunch of people sent to me at random, and it was to bring them up to dental health and make them cosmetically acceptable, if you like, to the general population. This was outside the scope of the normal practice for WINS. What happened from that is a large proportion of those people, once they had their self-esteem returned and their smile returned, got jobs within a very short time. So by removing the water fluoridation, there is a social cost. There will be more and more people pushed into that group, if you like, that will find it difficult to get jobs because of their appearance. Firstly, I'd just like to summarise. Water fluoridation is mandatory at keeping good oral health. It's a bit like playing a game of rugby with 15 people. You have to have good oral hygiene, good diet, and water fluoridation. You take one of those away and it changes the playing field. It's a bit like sending the Chiefs out with 10 people. When they got 15, they win most of the time. Send them out with 10, they're going to lose. Common sense tells us that after 50 years of water fluoridation within Hamilton, our health statistics are exactly the same as the non-fluoridated areas within New Zealand. So although it was mentioned Alzheimer's, etc., bone cancer, hip fractures and everything are promoted by water fluoridation, the health stats don't back that up. I won't go on. You do have the handout. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions, Margaret?
Thanks, Stephen. Easy to read. And your clarification points 1 to 3 were really helpful for me. So I just would like to ask, it's to do with fluoridation. So is water fluoridation the only, is that the best way that you see, or can we fluoridate in other ways, and why?
Water fluoridation is by far the best. I'll go back to what I mentioned about drinking fluoridated water, how the fluoride in your saliva spikes, and that spike in fluoride will last for 2 hours, and therefore low dose frequently is definitely the best option.
Okay, we've got, that's your 10 minutes, so thanks very much, and thanks for that clarification at the end. Right, the next person is Mary Byrne from Fluoride Free Wellington, the Wairarapa. Morning, Mary. So, Mary, you have 15 minutes, including time for questions.
Good morning, Mayor, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I've been involved in this subject since 1999, so this is a subject that's dear to my heart. I've been doing some presentations around the country, and my PowerPoint is here and somewhere. Basically, there's actually so many things to say. If I just quickly say, in response to some of the things Dr. Pauly has just said, when you drink fluoridated water, it only ups your concentration in your saliva to 0.06 part per million. It's a tiny, tiny amount, which they know does not confer a topical benefit. But one of the things I really do not understand with the pro-fluoridation lobby is how they can be so disrespectful to people, because don't we have a choice? I haven't had fluoridated water for years. I only have it when I have to in fluoridated areas. Haven't used a fluoride toothpaste. My teeth are really good. I grew up with fluoridated water, had a mouthful of fillings. But isn't it disrespectful to force fluoride on people? I would rather take the chance of filling or dentures than dementia. Isn't that my choice? Isn't that the residents' choice? It's just, I really just don't understand the arrogance of it, really. Anyway, and if we look at what they're saying today, because as he said, they have actually changed their mind. They have actually changed their opinion on how things work over the years. So they used to think that we had to swallow fluoride, and now they say that it's topical. So they were wrong for 50 years. They were wrong. So all they said here yesterday was, believe us, we're the experts, we've got all the endorsements. But they were wrong for 50 years, so why exactly are they right today? He even said they're wrong about plaque, so that's a new one. So swallowing fluoride does not reduce dental decay, despite what one of the esteemed dentists said here yesterday, Dr. Kawini. he still thought that swallowing fluoride was good. So we have a whole lot of dentists that don't even realise that the theory's moved on. And this was the Centres for Disease Control, and they had decreed this over 10 years ago. So finally, we're getting the New Zealand dental fluoridation promoters coming on board. We have, I'm not actually sure if his name's Gregory Seymour, but anyway, Dean of the Otago Dental School, telling us it's post-eruptive and topical. You have to have the teeth. So we just take this huge risk with bottle-fed babies who don't have teeth. We give them this huge dose of fluoride because, what exactly? Because maybe it saves half a filling, perhaps. And this is the largest large-scale study, shows that there's no correlation between ingested fluoride and dental decay. And this is Robin Wyman, who was here yesterday. He's arguably the top fluoridation promoter in the country. He says he's not surprised there's no correlation because it doesn't work by swallowing. And this was him in the newspaper a couple of weeks ago. He's telling us all fluoride does not work by swallowing. So the top fluoridation promoter in the country is telling us it doesn't work by swallowing. So no fluoridation promoter can really say otherwise. And this is Robin Hayes from Welsh saying that you don't need to use fluoride tablets anymore. They don't promote them. They were wrong about that, actually. So all the people that took fluoride tablets. Now, in our oral health, I think it said 93% of people brush at least once a day for fluoride toothpaste, but I possibly could be wrong on that. Maybe it's less. Now, Arvid Carlson, he says it's also far-fetched. You have the teeth there. Why swallow the stuff? And this was Kanagaratham on the Herald on Sunday, a New Zealand dental researcher, saying, oh, well, the reason is because when we cook or drink with fluoridated water, it has contact with our teeth. Now, are we really honestly supposed to believe that? Is that really just not going beyond the pale, that when you have a drink of water, that 0.8 part per million is supposed to confer this magical effect? They don't worry about it in Germany or Sweden or Denmark, very advanced places in the world, but here in New Zealand we think 0.8 part per million, brushing past your teeth is going to have this necessary effect, in fact, if you listen to Dr. Pauly. And if you think about it, fluoridated toothpaste has 1,000 parts per million. And when Plunkett give out the toothpaste, they give out 1,000 parts per million. They don't even give out the children's strength one because they say the children's strength one isn't enough at 400 parts per million. Yet you're supposed to believe that drinking a glass of water with 0.8 part per million is going to somehow keep your teeth without decay. It's really ridiculous. And this is the baby bottle tooth decay that we keep being shown will happen if you don't have fluoridated water, which has got absolutely nothing to do with it. And I also noticed that Dr. Pauly talked about dose, but he was talking about concentration in water. They're different things, and people keep mucking that up. Dose is what you have as your medication, whereas what they're putting into the water is a concentration. So if we think about it, I obviously didn't change that. What we're talking about here is how much, if we compare how much a newborn baby who's being bottle fed, what their dose is, we are looking at this sort of a dosage, milligrams per kilo per day. And we have to know, is that dosage safe? Because if we remember, there's no benefit for these babies, none whatsoever. It's all risk. Now, is this a safe dosage? And should the parents be allowed to decide? And here we go with 6-month-olds. So I'll leave this PowerPoint here and you can look at the figures yourself. And if we compare what the dosage is for getting dental fluorosis, it's been quite well established. It has to be under this dosage to not get dental fluorosis. And we can see that bottle-fed babies in Hamilton are exceeding the dose that is likely to cause dental fluorosis. So is that important? Well, it's not just theory. We know that lots of children have dental fluorosis and a lot more in the fluoridated areas. And the Ministry of Health say it doesn't matter because it doesn't look that bad and you can hardly see it. But is that really a sensible thing to say? You know, for any thinking person, would you really say that? It is a biomarker of overexposure to a poison. So would you say, don't worry about it? And it's like, as we saw yesterday, a thin blue line is actually some sort of heavy metal, lead or heavy metal poisoning. No one would turn around and say, don't worry about it because you hardly ever see your gums. That's how unthinking that sort of statement is. And the National Research Council that Declan Ward was talking about, they determined the dosage that is likely to affect the thyroid. Now, if we compare that to the dosage that bottle-fed babies in Hamilton are getting, we can see that they're getting a dosage that exceeds what the top science in the world has determined is likely to affect the thyroid. That is really, really important stuff. It's not something that we can just put to the side and say it doesn't matter. Surely the babies are one of the most vulnerable, or if not the most vulnerable, subsection of our population. And it is reckless, to say the least, to be giving them this high dose of fluoride, which is something like 200 times what is naturally occurring in breast milk. And they're being given this via the public water supply. It can't be boiled out. Parents have no idea, for the most part, that they're giving this high dose of fluoride. I think most parents would not want to do that. If they knew that, they wouldn't want to go and give their baby a high dose of something they don't need with all the potential harm. And then the other things that are, was the pro-fluoride chairman of the NRC. He says these thyroid changes do worry him. And the meta-analysis done by the Harvard researchers that was published last year, and they were saying that, it's looking likely that fluoride definitely is reducing IQ. The only discussion now is at what level it reduces IQ. So these were some of the studies that were in the meta-analysis, and we can see that one study actually had as low as 0.88 milligrams per litre. I think iodine was deficient in that study, but we know that a lot of New Zealanders are deficient in iodine. And this was a study from India, and it looked at dental fluorosis with IQ, and it found that no matter how little dental fluorosis children had, it seemed to be impacting on their IQ. So that's just more evidence that we can't dismiss dental fluorosis as merely cosmetic. And this was Philip Grandjean. He has published over 400 studies. He's a really well-renowned scientist in the world, and he's saying that fluoride seems to fit with lead, mercury, and other poisons that cause chemical brain drain. Now that's serious information, and I feel that if people believe in fluoride, then they can brush their teeth, because that's what the argument boils down to these days. We know it works topically, so all the argument it is do the DHB, do some program to encourage people to brush their teeth, or do counsellors add a highly toxic chemical, not knowing what effect it's going to have on people, because there's no other way of forcing it onto people, because that's what it boils down to. Boils down to forcing it onto people, because otherwise they can do programs. They should have a program saying never ever put it into a baby's bottle anything other than milk or water, so that everybody knows never put the fruit juice in or anything like that. That would reduce a whole lot of the baby bottle tooth decay. That's an easy thing to do. They could have ads on the TV getting children to brush their teeth. They could make some really nice adverts. Children are watching TV. That's another easy, simple way that the DHB could use all this money that's being spent here, instead of coming here arguing this. They could have some TV advertisements. But really what they want to do is make sure it's forced on people. So I hope that that you come to a principled decision, and let alone being a sensible decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So questions? Yes, Councillor Henneberg.
The last presenter said that there was no evidence in New Zealand of the statistics. We're talking about dementia and thyroid, etc. So if there's no evidence, it's okay. What's your response to that?
Well, they haven't done the studies. They have no evidence that it's not. So how can they say there's no evidence that, that it doesn't make a difference, because they haven't done the studies? The only thing they study in New Zealand is teeth. It's the only studies they ever do. And then because they haven't done the studies, they say, oh, there's no studies to prove that it has an adverse health effect. But how can there be studies to prove it if they won't do the studies? Absence of studies doesn't mean absence of harm.
And yesterday, some of the submitters said that because of the cost, it was too costly to do, so therefore they're happy with the status quo. How do you feel on that?
I think that's a poor excuse. I think that's a very poor excuse, but I think that it's now so ridiculous, really. Why bother doing the studies? Why not just stop? It only works topically anyway. Why don't they just have toothbrushing programs like they did in the far north? Why not have some TV ads? There's so many other things. They could be creative and be helping people out that really do need it. And the people with the worst dental decay are the children with the baby bottle tooth decay. So why don't they really look at that area? I think, and it just goes against all principles of modern pharmacology, the right dose to the right person at the right time. And as we saw from Dr. Scanlon yesterday, the other really unknown is a dose to the fetus and the embryo. What is that dose? And a dose to a newborn baby, what effect is that having? We've got no idea, and there's no way that you can do it through a public water supply. And why is fluoride the only medicine you're being asked to deliver? Why not some other medicines? Why not statins? Why not even vitamin C? At least it's an essential nutrient. So why are they only asking you to deliver fluoride?
Right, any other, I guess, Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mary, for your presentation. I think you quoted figures that we'd heard from other presenters around the level of fluorosis that's being found, 30% in fluoridated areas and 15% in non-fluoridated areas. Why would there be any fluorosis in non-fluoridated areas?
Why would there be any? Probably from toothbrushing, children swallowing the toothpaste. And if Plunkett are giving out adult strength toothpaste, I would advise against that. And didn't Dr. Pauly say don't spit out your toothpaste? You'll get fluorosis. If children do that, they'll get dental fluorosis. Mm-hmm. So I would say mostly from the toothpaste.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Mary.
Okay, thank you.
Right, our next presenter is Heather House. So Heather is from Health Freedom New Zealand. Is Heather here? I've become Heather, thanks. You've got 15 minutes including questions. Okay.
Good morning, councillors and everyone else. Thank you for giving me time to contribute to this very important decision affecting the health, environment and the future of not just my family but yours. Health freedom is exactly that, the right to enjoy your health free from malicious or ignorant threat, and the right to address any health issues in a way that makes innate sense to the sufferer. Under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted by the United Nations in 1948, Article 1, all human beings are free and equal in dignity and right, endowed with reason and conscience. On the topic of fluoride, reason sits well with the global chemical industries, yet is sadly twisted for the average citizen. I'm sure you're aware that hydrofluoric acid is a liquid byproduct of the smelting industry, acquired by scrubbing the chimney stacks of phosphate fertilizer and metal extracting manufacturers. Hydrofluoric acid is one of the most corrosive and hazardous inorganic acids known to mankind. It is typically contaminated with lead, mercury and arsenic and is too toxic to be disposed of by normal means. Although this hearing is regarding the addition of fluoride to municipal water, this may actually only be a very small part of our daily exposure. I will demonstrate that the overall fluoride burden to New Zealand citizens is dangerously high, and by adding it to water supplies, we add to that burden, making it unnecessary and unethical. Fluoride is added to many diverse products, including 150 common herbicides and insecticides, and is the main ingredient in most pesticides, including 1080. Crolite is a sticky fluoride-containing mineral used as a pesticide on many fruits and vegetables and has permissible concentrations of up to 180 parts per million. It is used in New Zealand agriculture, and products like grapes, for example, are very high in residue. This class of chemical is not easily washed off, is not destroyed by heat, and will concentrate with production. Sulfur fluoride is added as a gas fumigant to kill insects and rodents. Previously banned due to its toxicity, it was approved in 2004 in food processing companies, resulting in residues of up to 70 parts per million in or on processed foods, and up to 130 parts per million in or on wheat, with no required labelling. Fluoride accumulates like heavy metal, so imported stock feed is of particular concern. I won't go into the toothpaste, tooth care, as everyone knows about that, but it's also in Teflon and metals and products around our homes. One has to ask how fluoride is somehow toxic when used in pest control and in industry, but is somehow safe when taken into the human body. It's also in many pharmaceutical drugs, medicines such as antidepressants, antipsychotics, anti-anxiety, antifungals, arthritis meds, antacids, antibiotics, steroids, antidepressants, and chemotherapy drugs. 70 years ago, the only exposure would have been a couple of cups of tea a day, and we wonder why cancer is increasing. The effects of chronic fluoride or fluorine exposure from ingestion, inhalation, and skin absorption, remembering you can even get your fluoride from having a shower, includes weight loss, chronic fatigue, general depression, headaches, bone, joint, and muscle pain, muscle spasm, brittle bones, and brittle teeth. Tinnitus, anemia, acidosis, nose bleeding, blurred vision, dizziness, poured out. It goes on and on. There's a huge list here. Returning to the impact of fluoride in municipal water, there are huge amounts of information created by 12 Nobel Prize winners, thousands of scientists, university lecturers, and even ex-dental health professionals, demonstrating the lack of evidence to support fluoridation of municipal water. Even the World Health Organization states that dental caries are not caused by a lack of fluoride, and that increased dental health could be largely attributed to toothpaste, refrigerated food, awareness of nutrition, and dental care. Dr. Paul Cornett, a retired professor of environmental chemistry and toxicology, recently visited New Zealand. He is regarded as the world's authority on the issue of fluoride. He invited every pro-fluoride expert in this country to read his recent book, The Case Against Fluoride, How Hazardous Wastes End Up in Our Drinking Water, and the Bad Science and Powerful Politics That Keep It There, and enter into productive debate. Not a single person took up his offer. Article 2 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone is entitled to freedom, justice and peace without distinction of any kind, including political, opinion-based, and judicial status. New Zealand has played a historical and pivotal role in the fluoride deception. This has been exposed recently by using the Official Information Act. Our own scientific evidence no longer stands scrutiny within New Zealand, and yet is presented overseas to the few countries who still add fluoride to municipal water. I recently learned that Europe still gives fluoride to its citizens, but through salt. I hear that there's probably quite a lot of doubles up, so I'm going through the less known stuff that I found. Article 29 of the Declaration of Human Rights outlines the duties of those who serve the community, as you do, councillors, to show respect for the rights and freedoms of others, and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare of society. Many countries have conducted high court trials questioning the legality of city councillors playing doctor with a product that is not sanctioned by the American FDA as a medical product. Adding fluoride to food and water is an unproven medical benefit, has many ethical issues. Firstly, has no dose control, is not patient-specific, requires no individual gaining of consent, and causes significant detrimental health, including damaged and brittle teeth. If systemically ingested fluoride does indeed reduce cavities, it's only recommended for children between the age of 3 and 8, meaning that for the rest of the population it's either useless or harmful. Only 50% of ingested fluoride is excreted through the kidneys. The remainder accumulates in our bones, pineal gland, and other tissues. If the kidney is damaged, fluoride accumulation will increase. Fluoride is a microelement. It crosses the placenta. I have references in my writing, but as I don't have a PowerPoint, you don't get to see them. the blood-brain barrier, carrying heavy metals deeper into tissues than any other element, and yet it's used for making infant formula. The American Dental Association in 2006 advised that parents should avoid giving babies fluoridated water, and yet this is standard practice in New Zealand. Knowledge of the harmful effects of fluoride and fluorine on humans has been known for a very long time. Dr. Rosini documented stomach lining damage in 1909. Recent studies have observed its action in the body is much like heavy metal, displacing calcium, damaging hormone receptors and enzymes. This action is implicated in early puberty, genetic damage, Down syndromes, autism, hypothyroidism, behavioural disorder such as ADD and ADDH, lowered fertility and all dementias. Fluoride directly causes dental and skeletal fluorosis and is thought to contribute to arthritis, all cancers, especially bone cancer, and increased fracture. I hear so many older people are breaking their hips these days. In the 1950s, it was prescribed as a medication for those suffering from hypothyroidism. Unfortunately, for healthy people, it reduces the production of T3 and T4. These hormones are required by all metabolically active cells, and their reduced presence cause a range of ill health effects, including fatigue, muscle and joint pain, depression, weight gain, menstrual disturbances, impaired fertility, impaired memory, and inability to concentrate. This action, in turn, exacerbates iodine deficiency, which has been linked very strongly with lowering of IQ. My personal knowledge is mental health. Fluoride damages the beneficial bacteria in the upper gastrointestinal tract, which plays a vital role in the production of B vitamins and serotonin. The incidence of depression and suicide in New Zealand is staggering. Our teen suicide is 5 times that of the UK. Their fluoridation is about 10% of the country, as opposed to 60% of New Zealand. 558 Kiwis died from suicide between the years of 2010 and 11. That's 11 families a week that are devastated, and it's getting worse. A time has come to stop throwing resources at symptoms and address causes directly, especially ones like fluoride. It's not that hard. It's not just humans that are being harmed. Only 1% of treated water is used for drinking. The bulk is used for domestic, commercial and agricultural purposes and ends up in the environment. All our pets and animals are also adversely affected. Under Section 23 of the Health Act 1956, councils have a statutory duty to protect the public from environmental health risks, including fluoride, which has been demonstrated repeatedly in international scientific journals as a health risk. The burden of proof lies with the health authorities to prove safety, not the community to object to unwanted and experimental mass medication, which has never received legal clearance, let alone FDA safety. This fraudulent practice is costing untold damage to health, well-being and future generational safety, resulting in huge current and future financial costs, not to mention social, emotional and productivity costs. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Voss.
Do you think that council should have considered or could consider going to a referendum and going back to the people of Hamilton to see what they would like?
I don't think most people really realise how much fluoride is used in industry and in food production from all through your day. Every hot drink you have, every reconstituted juice, every soup, every shower, every medication, every cigarette has fluoride in it. So we're only supposed to have something like 0.08, I think, parts per million exposure in an 8-hour time weight day.
No, the question
the people, I don't think the people, general population, understand how much fluoride they're exposed to on a daily basis.
But that didn't answer the question. Should we go back to our voters and ask them whether they would like fluoride left in or taken out?
No.
We shouldn't?
Well, only if there's honest discussion on fluoride, showing both sides of the story, put out for general viewing by everybody. On television, articles, there's plenty of media that could be put on there so people can have a balanced view.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Councillor Bell.
Do you want to go?
No, you go first.
Heather, thank you. You gave quite a long list of adverse effects, some of which we'd not heard from other submitters who are asking us to stop fluoridating. Of those, would there be, say, 3 that are particularly concerning to you?
I think I left a page out. I was going to go into how fluoride's in our pesticide, in wood preservatives, antifungal products, and all these things. So,
No.
yeah, the health effects have been discovered through exposure to other.
My question is, which is, say, the top concern or the top 3 health concerns that you see or your organisation sees?
It's a combination of the effect on their mental well-being, including the dementias and ADDs and all those things, the mental health. The effect on the endocrine system, early puberty and all those ones that come under that, and the effect on bones and teeth.
Thank you.
Councillor Hennebury?
Yeah. The DHB say that fluoride, because it's in low doses, isn't classed as a medicine. So that's why it's not gone to the FTA. What do you say to that?
If you were exposed to tiny little amounts of lead all day that are below the threshold of poison, but all day long, would it not accumulate and become so? So, no, it is in so many different medications. So how could it be present in so many medications and not be called a medicine in other forms?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Right, the next speaker is Dr. Selwyn June. Okay. Okay, so you've got 10 minutes, including times for questions. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Selwyn June, and I'm a resident of Hamilton. My occupation is a food safety consultant in the fresh produce industry, and I support the continuation of fluoridation of the Hamilton water supply. The approach I took in preparing for this submission was to read the scientific reviews that have been carried out in the last 10 years on the efficacy and safety of fluoride in water supplies. Now, these reviews have been done in a number of countries. They typically involve quite large groups of scientists and medical researchers in the fields of toxicology and epidemiology. They consult other experts, and they evaluate all of the published research that is available to date. So taken together, these reviews represent the consensus of scientists around the world, much as the IPPC represents the consensus of scientific opinion on climate change. The fluoridation of water supplies has been found to decrease dental decay and improve oral health. This is the conclusion of a number of these reviews. I started with the York Review of 2000 in the United Kingdom, which was followed up by studies from their Medical Research Council. There was the Forum on Fluoridation in Ireland, 2002. In Australia, the Australian National Health and Medical Research Council did their review in 2007. The World Health Organization, their latest review was on fluoride in drinking water was in 2006. And in the USA, the Centers for Disease Control, their last review was in 2007. And of course, there have been recent surveys in New Zealand, which you would have heard about. What surprised me was that despite the advent of fluoride toothpaste and its wide use, water supply fluoridation remains effective in most of the communities that have been studied. One of the striking features of these studies is the disproportionate benefit of fluoridation on some sections of the community. In New Zealand, this can be seen in a racial breakdown of tooth decay rates in fluoridated and non-fluoridated communities. In the UK, it was found that children in what they called lower social classes, or in areas of social deprivation, which they defined, benefit from fluoridation to the extent that their teeth were as healthy as those of children from more privileged social classes. The removal of fluoridation in the Hamilton water supply would therefore impact most heavily on Maori and Pacifica and other groups within our community where dental hygiene is not, and diet are not conducive to good dental health. In other words, it would be discriminatory. Fluoride supplementation of water supplies and even food to set levels is accepted as safe by regulatory authorities in many countries. And these include the most particular countries in terms of what's in their food, food safety, and having strong controls on contaminants and pesticides in food. I couldn't find any evidence of regulatory authorities who considered fluoridation to be unsafe. Fluoridation has been reviewed by the World Health Organization in 2006, and they continue to advocate water supply fluoridation as a public health measure by their member countries, along with other measures. After many decades of use, 65 years or so, and numerous scientific studies, there is no evidence of harmful effects to the health of individuals or communities from controlled fluoridation of the water supply. Some communities are exposed to excessively high levels of fluoride from the natural level in the water, and there is evidence that some of these communities you can find skeletal fluorosis and bone fractures as adverse effects. The fluoride levels in these cases are many times higher than the water fluoridation levels which are considered to be safe. And in the USA and Europe, none of these adverse health effects have actually been found, such as skeletal fluorosis. The scientific reviews that I mentioned have looked at all scientific studies, from testing of animals in laboratories to population studies where different groups of people with different exposures are compared. This is a difficult area of study because correlations do not necessarily mean causation, given other possible causes of health problems and the intake of fluoride in food as well as drinking water, and possibly pollution sources. The most recent reviews are by the Scientific Committee for Health and Environmental Risk for the European Commission, 2011, the National Research Council review of 2006 in the United States, where they looked at the EPA's safe upper limit for fluoride exposure, the World Health Organization, 2006 I've mentioned. The conclusions from these reviews, in the careful language of scientists, is that adverse health effects are not expected at the low levels of fluoride exposure found in drinking water, at levels up to 1.5 parts per million. In Hamilton, we used 0.7 parts per million. The National Research Council in the United States did consider that the maximum contaminant level of 4 parts per million set by the EPA be reviewed and lowered. That's much higher than is used in water fluoridation. It's an upper safety limit, considering the total intake of fluoride in people's diet. Now, one study that's often quoted as showing an effect of fluoride intake on children's IQ is the Harvard study of 2012. And this looked at some published studies from China and Iran, where there are very high natural levels of fluoride, up to 12 parts per million, which is 16 times higher than Hamilton's supply. They noted that this information and the analysis of those researchers in China was of poor quality, but they took the data as a set of information as a starting point for future research, and not as any judgment regarding possible levels of risk at the levels of exposure typical for water fluoridation. To me, fluoridation is not medication, it's supplementation of a naturally occurring mineral in our diet and our water. To me, it's ethically acceptable and socially equitable to supplement the water supply, fluoride in the water supply. My final comments would be that I don't consider that this consultation process is a full and adequate consultation of residents. I'm sure it's very useful for gathering information and making people aware of the issues. I don't consider that Council has a mandate to change the status quo. The binding referendum of residents in 2006 provided overwhelming backing for the continuation of fluoridation, and another referendum would be required if the councillors wished to change the current position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Hennebery.
Would you consider residents to have the knowledge that you or maybe other medical or people in that field would have to make an informed choice, as you've suggested?
I'm not considering myself as an expert. I'm here as a resident, and...
Well, my question then is the experts' knowledge equivalent to those in the residents, is the public, as you say?
Well, the residents have a chance to hear expert opinion, have information given to them, as they were in 2006.
You've quoted some information, but some very learned people in the last few days have said that there hasn't been actually research done into the concerns of some people. So therefore, well, we just go with the status quo. Would you agree with that?
No, there's many detailed scientific studies around the world, and that research is ongoing. I mean, there's thousands of studies.
So you'd put your reputation on fluoride is safe?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Is that it? Right. The next speaker is Barry Cope. This might be a reminder for presenters. We do have the written material, and you can take it that councillors are looking at that. If they have not already read it, they will be reading it while you're presenting it. So highlighting your key points is probably the best way to go. Then it gives time for us to have the questions. We are keeping to time frames so that everyone gets to have their chance. So welcome along, Barry, and you're here on behalf of Grey Power.
That's correct.
Okay.
Last 15th of May, Grey Power held a debate over fluoridation of water supplies in New Zealand. It was an intense debate, and it could be boiled down to two factors. One was entrenched belief, and the other was scientific evidence. The scientists won. Now Grey Power has passed the motion that Grey Power notes the recent research and exposes the long-term risks of water fluoridation and presses the government to change its health policy and remove fluoride from our town water supplies. Since you all have my submission, it reviews the literature of the last 10 years until the end of 2011. You heard a few minutes ago, the last speaker made a few claims. I was shocked. he raised the issue of the efficacy and safety of fluoridation of our water supplies. He had references going back until 2006 of the fluoridation of water supplies, and to 2007 with respect to the United States Disease Control Authority. Let me tell you that before the advent of sugar brought to New Zealand and traded by Europeans, Maori had perfect teeth, as was noted by Sidney Parkinson, who sailed with Captain James Cook. Our previous speaker mentioned the 2000 review by the European Commission, allowing up to 1.5 parts per million for the water fluoridation in Europe. Continental Europe has outlawed fluoridation of water supplies, outlawed it, because they are very, very aware of the dangers of the fluoride ion. It is the most active of all the fluoride, or of all the non-metallic ions, the most active. It is the one that attacks the thyroid gland in excess. It is the one that attacks our production of red blood cells. It is the one that interferes with the efficacy of the mitochondria within the sperm, and we have declining levels of fertility within New Zealand, particularly in those fluoridated areas where sperm mobility can be most affected. I'd like to read out a couple of points. There is firm evidence that it affects the pineal gland. Serotonin, that's the feel-good hormone, is produced by the pineal. The seasonal effects disorder is caused by low serotonin. In Finland, Sweden, Norway, where light levels fall during the winter months, the recommended dosage is to turn on lights. They have areas where people can go and be irradiated with light, and that is to prevent the seasonal affective disease. And the effect of that is to build up serotonin, because the pineal gland is basically knocked out by the excess of fluoride ion that we are giving people in their water supply. Another fact is that the evidence of the fluoride ion advances the onset of menstruation in girls, and it increases the risk of breast cancer. And it can cause a rare bone cancer in boys. It reduces intelligence levels in children, and it causes premature births with associated complications and higher death rates. And it affects the ways that the kidneys and the thyroids work, and has other adverse health effects. People drinking fluoridated water over their lifetimes and who reach the age of 85 years have an 85% risk of going down with Alzheimer's. Easy to remember, 85% risk once you get to 85 years of age. Very simple figures to remember. The cause of that is the fluoride ion. 2 speakers ago, a lady pointed out how it is used in pesticides. We are spreading the fluoride ion in terms of our addition of 1080, sodium fluoroacetate. Very simple molecule, it spreads everywhere, and it is one of the great causes of the decline of our native bird population. Not just the cats that Gareth Morgan is concerned about. A letter to the Waikato Times some weeks ago really, I thought, summed it up pretty well. He wrote on the 2nd of May, in the light of the fact that the Ministry of Health tries to browbeat local councils into using fluoride in drinking water, I point readers to a report in the World Health Organization, the EU Commission and the Irish government just released. This report is based on a 2006 report by the US National Research Council, comparing fluoridated Ireland with non-fluoridated Northern Ireland. The difference in a whole range of health parameters is staggering, and the National Research Council lays most of them at the feet of the fluoride ion, because fluoride is toxic, being carcinogenic, has endocrine disruptive effects, etc. Differences of 450% for early onset dementia, 300% for sudden infant death syndrome, 470% for diabetes were shown. What is most alarming is the fact that of the 6 countries, yes, just 6, that fluoridate water supplies, the United States, Canada, Ireland, some parts of the United Kingdom, Australia and New Zealand feature in the top 10 of poor health statistics. And we still have people who think that we should continue water fluoridation. Yes, we have the worst statistics for sudden infant death syndrome, twice those of 5th placed Ireland. Ischemic heart disease, we are 2nd. Deaths from musculoskeletal diseases, we are 3rd. For obesity, and we are 3rd, and we are 9th for male prostate cancer, all based on the Organisation of Economically Developed Countries and World Health Organization figures, and caused mainly by the fluoride ion. Having researched fluoride and its effects for years, I urge readers to vote to remove fluoride from drinking water and to be careful with anything made from fluoridated water. And this was written by Frank Ralston from Matamata, a very switched-on guy who knows what he's talking about. The paper that you all have a copy of is the case against fluoride. As I said, I wrote that with information gained from reading scientific journals up until the end of 2011. All the references on my submission are on the back of that case. The points I think are pertinent are studies in China and India, which have large areas where higher concentrations, greater than 1 part per million in local drinking water, have confirmed what experimental evidence has shown. That is, a lower IQ in children born in these areas. Recent work has shown that prolonged ingestion of fluoride may cause significant damage to the nervous system. And because scientists cannot ethically subject humans to experimental investigation, they have been forced to rely on studies on experimental animals such as rats and mice. Animal studies show fluoride's toxic effects include classic brain abnormalities found in patients with Alzheimer's disease. Now we know how harmful the fluoride ion can be to biological systems. New Zealand is one of a number of countries that still fluoridate their water supplies, often without consent of citizens. Apart from a few villages in Spain, the whole of continental Europe has outlawed the addition of fluoride to drinking water. It is clear that the improvements in dental health parallel the widespread use of toothbrushes, not the dosing of water supplies with fluoride, because similar improvements in dental health have occurred in areas that have never been fluoridated. And we still have people that think we should continue to add fluoride to our drinking water, completely ignoring the other, more damaging effects that the fluoride ion has on our system. Recent studies have shown that the fluoride ion decreases production of erythrocytes in the bone marrow and other hemopoietic tissues and increases erythrocytic abnormalities, resulting in premature death of red blood cells. In other words, your red blood cells do not last quite as long as they do in people who live in non-fluoridated areas. Generally, they tend to be healthier than those who live in fluoridated areas. Owing to the fluoride ion-induced thyroid hormone deficiency, an adequate stimulus is also lacking for erythrocyte production. If you have low thyroid output, you have low erythrocyte production. The fluoride ion reduces folic acid activity. The fluoride diminishes beneficial microbial growth in the gut and inhibits the production of vitally needed vitamin B12. Thank you. Okay, perhaps the best sort of vitamin B12 is mushrooms. So make sure you get mushrooms with your meal. Fluoride causes loss of microvilli, that's the brush border region of the intestinal lining, and the resulting in poor absorption of nutrients critical for the biosynthesis of hemoglobin. The Indian study recruited a large number of pregnant women, gave them iron pills and folic acid supplements, and counselled one half of the recruits as to how they could avoid absorbing fluoride. The non-counsel group formed the controls. Hemoglobin levels in the experimental counsel groups were 73 to 83% higher than those of the controls. Preterm delivery at 34 weeks were less than a quarter of the controlled group. In short, fluoride causes anemia in pregnancy. The area where water is fluoridated, elevated fluoride accumulates in soft tissues and organs, including the heart. Experimental fluorosis in animals produces changes in electrocardiogram and severe pathological lesions in the myocardium. Recent in vitro studies have shown that fluoride can cause changes in the ultrastructure of hepatocytes, in submandibular gland cells, and in cells of the pancreas, with the most pronounced changes occurring in the mitochondria of cells. The mitochondria are the powerhouses of our living systems. The current understanding of the links between exposure of the fluoride ion and the potential effects on human male fertility relate to changes in the structure and functional behaviour of spermatozoa, disruption of spermatogenesis, and disturbances of multiple hormone systems that impact on male reproduction. The changes in spermatozoa result from oxidative damage, zinc deficiency, and disturbed signal transduction. There is evidence that fluoride interferes with spermatogenesis by depressing levels of epidermal growth factor and epidermal growth factor receptor, modifying the G protein signaling and diminishing levels of testosterone and its androgen receptor, and disturbing levels of estradiol. Furthermore, it is also shown to interfere with thyroid hormone metabolism, which directly impacts not only on spermatogenesis, but also other reproductive functions. Declining sperm viability is so much a part of ageing in New Zealand. For these reasons alone, there is more than sufficient evidence to withdraw the right of councils to fluoridate our water supply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor O'Leary has a question for you, Barry.
Yes.
Thank you, Barry. Your submission, is that unanimous support from the Grey Power?
No.
It's no?
As I said, it was a heated debate.
Okay. So how many members does Grey Power have?
Oh, something like 70,000 people?
In the Hamilton area?
No. In Hamilton area, we've got about 1,700.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, thank you, Barry. Now we have one final speaker before morning tea, and that's Sue McFarlane. Just Sue, welcome along. Now, are you representing a dental association, or you could let us know who that is?
Yeah, I'll
Thanks. Okay, and we've got you down for 10 minutes, including questions.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Kia ora, good morning. I'm Mayor Julie Hardacre and members of Hamilton City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of my dental and oral health therapy colleagues working at the grassroots in your community. My name is Sue McFarlane. I'm a practicing dental therapist. I work in the Waikato for Waikato DHB Community Services and have several years of experience. I'm also a member of the National and Executive Committee of the New Zealand Dental and Oral Health Therapist Association. A bit about our service. Children enrolled in Hamilton City Waikato DHB clinics as of the 1st of May total 29,300 children. They are serviced by a workforce of 18 dental therapists and 18 dental assistants. Hamilton City has 4 fixed facilities and 3 treatment mobile vans. Our model of care is concentrated on a preventative approach. Over $10 million has been spent on updating our facilities in the last 2 years. Our client age group is 0 to 17 years inclusive, who attend school deciles 0 to 10. We see children from every conceivable care environment, from nuclear families, solo mums, grandparents caring for children, special needs schools, and families with and without transport to access our clinics. We deal with embarrassed parents, embarrassed that their child has tooth decay, and parents who are really struggling to make ends meet when oral health is the last thing on their mind. Our aim is good oral health for all for life. Our goals are to give children and parents the skills and understanding on what keeps our mouth healthy and its importance in their overall health. To put measures in place to prevent further decay for these children that have experienced decay. We discuss diet, food and drink. We discuss toothbrushing and identify risk factors as applicable to each individual patient. Most of our patients love coming to visit us and have and never will have any idea of the olden days saying of the murder house. This is only ever put in their minds by parents and grandparents. We are a registered profession with a dental council with identified scopes of practice, and we regularly attend and complete continuing professional development training. We work closely with a very supportive group of dentists who provide us with support and guidance when required. Our new facilities are modern and spacious. Our work attire is smart and casual with colourful clinical jackets. We aim to make the dental visit a friendly and enjoyable experience. And we're very skilled at providing a positive experience and diffusing quite stressful situations. A fluoridated water supply is one very important tool in our toolbox of preventative measures. It's our security blanket that provides prevention for all children, irrespective of their access to services. We know it's not the complete solution to fighting tooth decay, but it certainly helps without caregivers having to do anything. We know fluoride's currently added to our water supply in a controlled and measured environment. Can we say the same for the amount of sugar and preservatives added to our food supply? It's interesting to see of late in the letters to the editor at the Waikato Times how everything is a result of fluoride. Tumours, osteoporosis, heart disease, cot deaths, low IQ, etc., etc. What I'd like to say is that we all face many influencing factors like cell phones, cigarettes, cars and petrol fumes, microwaves, modems, preservatives and sugar, convenience food and alcohol. Actually, when you think about it, everything in our food chain. Isn't it conceivable that to some degree all of these have an influence in the diseases we're seeing today? Or, hey, is it just fluoride? In the Ministry of Health 2009 Oral Health Survey, the highest and most concerning age group for untreated decay was 25 to 35-year-olds, in fact 46.5% of that age group. Removing fluoride from the water supply will affect all of us. It'll affect you, it'll affect me, and the increased numbers of elderly with their own teeth and rest homes. Our Ministry of Health 2009 Oral Health Survey highlights that the most vulnerable ethnic group is Maori and Pacific Islanders. Water fluoridation helps prevent tooth decay, hence reducing disparities in oral health outcomes for Māori. Te Ao Marama, the Māori Dental Association, is in support of water fluoridation. Their patron, Professor John Broughton, said in Te Ao The Contemporary World, the fluoridation of water supplies does not conflict with the concept of waiora, the water of life, because fluoridated water brings oral health and well-being by protecting the dentition and the life of teeth. As a therapist at the grassroots, you just know when you're working in a non-fluoridated area. Quite frankly, there's just more decay. I invite you to come and sit in on a dental appointment with a 3-year-old requiring a tooth restoration. A 20 or 30-minute appointment is a big thing for a small child and parent and caregiver. In fact, it's a big deal for any child. By removing fluoride from your water supply, you can be assured it will mean more appointments for that 3-year-old. So that will mean just one more trip for a mum without transport. It'll mean one more child that hasn't been concentrating at school because of a toothache. Excuse me. It'll mean one more child not smiling and being proud of their smile because of decay in their front tooth. So I ask the council, is that what you really want to do? Research shows that by removing fluoride from the water supply will result in an increase in tooth decays in communities. There's a really good study in a 2004 New Zealand journal, actually, based by Lee and Dennis, based on a good study in Wellington and Canterbury. You have a chance to continue to improve the oral health of your communities. Do you want to be responsible for increasing oral health inequalities and poor oral health for the community you've been elected to serve? You can make an impact on the pressure put on your health system. You can stop our children and grandchildren from suffering from poor oral health. More importantly, you can make the 3-year-old's dental visit a really pleasant experience. The 3-year-old who is someone's child and somebody's grandchild, and it may be yours. I personally and professionally ask, please don't take a very reliable silent tool out of our toolbox when we've spent so much on creating a positive and preventative approach to school dentistry in the last few years. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sue. Now, Councillor McPherson's got a question.
Sue, given that fluoride has a topical effect, would you think there are any other alternative ways of getting fluoride to the kids you see, the kids you want to be affected by fluoride, other than putting it in the water supply?
We do already. So every child we see, we classify in a risk, low, medium or high risk. High risk children have topical fluoride applied to their teeth every 6 months, and evidence shows every 6 months for 2 years we do start to see some positive results of lower decay rates in those children. And we've got to realise, to apply that fluoride, we actually need consent from the parents to provide fluoride, and we have a preventative care consent. 98% of our parents have actually signed for every child that we treat. So we make, very aware of the benefits. So you've got to understand this. So seeing 29,300 plus children in your area alone, for us to be seeing, that's normally on an annual basis, for us to be seeing those high-risk children, which in a fluoridated area ranges maybe about 35%. We'll see those children every 6 months instead of a year, which impacts on our service as well, but it's a need. I currently work in a non-fluoridated area, and I can tell you percentage of our school are high risk. Probably about 70% of our children need fluoride.
Right, okay, so thanks very much, Sue, for your presentation, and I'm not sure that we had that full information that you gave, so if you want to leave some copies, that would be helpful. Okay, we're breaking now for morning tea, and I'm just checking the time. Okay, so we're back at 11 o'clock.